Hey everybody, and welcome back to Trekyards. He is Commander Cocky.
He's got a Foley. Oh, flip script.
Yeah. And today we're here to talk about time travel and its implications and explanations.
Yes, you've seen our other videos today. We're covering each version of this debate because it's been a bit of a debate. You saw our anti, as in one way thinking. Now we're doing the positive and discussing what the showrunner has said about the time travel and the implications of this. As this is the truth. This is the truth, yes. Or check out the other video and that is the truth. Both. Neither.
Yeah, Terry Medalus. Yeah, he made a statement about why Guinan doesn't remember Picard, which basically says this Guinan wouldn't remember Picard because in this alternate timeline, the TNG episode Time Zero never happened. Because there was no Federation, those events did not play out the same. No previous relationship exists. However, she still was likely traveling back to Earth, and as we know, she hung around a bit, so this Guinan is different. But she, of course, can sense something's off. She's going through a kind of time sickness thanks to Q's meddling with the timeline. So that's the exact quote there.
So that then confirms that no, none of the time travel in Star Trek happened, except this. But we also have the question of the punk on the bus, who clearly registers and remembers Spock's event. However, he also addressed that in a second quote, Stuart, if you want to read that.
Yes, he says, it was one of the first things I pitched, actually. We love the idea, and maybe this guy migrated from San Francisco to Los Angeles at some point. Now, technically, Star Trek 4 wouldn't have happened in this alternate timeline, but maybe some part of him remembers his encounter with Spock in the Prime timeline, and it made me chuckle that he'd go up against 7 of 9. I reached out to Kirk right away, who was absolutely game to return. That, of course, is Kirk Thatcher, who played the punk.
So that is a pure Easter egg, no canon whatsoever. Pure Easter egg, pure, don't take it any more seriously than funny.
Well, I'm going to just bring something up. In my first reaction video last night, somebody said, how do you know it wasn't Kirk, evil Kirk, Confederation Kirk, that went back and put him in a headlock? And that's another reason for the neck grab. So, hey, I'm down with that.
Well, I mean, it's worth pointing out, I've got a list of things that now no longer have happened in this universe because, given Terry's logic, everything has changed, and way more than you would consider. So, now 2024 has changed, everything future has now changed, which means any time travel has now stopped happening. So, Enterprise Season 1 to 4 never happened, because Enterprise Season 1 to 4 was kicked off by the future guy creating a problem with the Klingons and the Suliban, who then made us see the Klingons, who then made us go to space quicker, who then fought the Xindi, etc. So Enterprise Seasons 1 to 4 did not happen the way you think. We did not meet the Klingons until later. So Enterprise is no longer canon. The ship is, but the show is no longer canon in this timeline. There's no debate there, because the future guy never happened, to Temporal Cold War never happened, so Enterprise Season 1 to 4, not in this universe. Not just that, but the mirror universe is now totally different as well in this timeline, because the Defiant never went back in time to their universe, so the mirror universe never got the Defiant, which means the mirror universe has also been completely changed timeline-wise as well. So the mirror universe, the DS9 does no longer exist. There's no longer mirror universe that we know. Done. End of story. The Whale probe was never stopped the way we think, so now it must have been destroyed by Confederation, because they never went back in time, and no reason to think they did. So, Whale probe destroyed, I guess?
Might make sense. The Confederation is stronger, more aggressive, perhaps.
Yeah, but they never went back in time, and it's very unlikely that there would be a Kirk and a Spock in those positions to go back in time on a bird of prey. So that event didn't happen, so the Whale probe was dealt otherwise. Gary Seven and his people cannot mention Kirk next week because they never met Kirk, because Kirk never went back in time, because that's after this. So Gary Seven can make no mention of ever meeting anybody from the future of the Federation, or even the Federation, because they never met them. And because the Federation never existed, Gary Seven cannot, or the team cannot mention anything Federation or Starfleet. Never existed. So that's end of that as well. No Edith Keeler with Kirk, never happened. No Guardian scene, never happened. We're not going to get any reference to Cisco and Dax or Bashir in the past, because they could never go back and create the Bell rights in their way. So we hope to see something, but there can be no reference to them whatsoever. They are not in this timeline 0. There's no temporal Cold War, because the future has now been changed, and it's illogical to think all the pieces would still connect. You know, the Federation would not have the same influence, because it's not the Federation, to create the other factions, to create. So there's no temporal Cold War now. Something might have happened, but not the one we saw, which means all the things we see are gone as well. And no Chrono Works never happened, because there was not a relativity in a Braxton to send to lose a time ship in the past. So I researched this. So the integrated circuit, or ISO, never existed, which is what sort of sped up the tech in the 21st century. So also Earth is far less advanced because Corona Works did not speed technology. So there should be almost no advanced tech of any kind in this present as well. So it's far more Earth rather than Star Trek Earth, timeline-wise, because you remove those time travel events as well. And it also tells us that temporal shielding of time ships like Relativity and 21st Century are not effective against giant timeline changes. So all the temporal Cold War guys, all the time ships, any time agent ever has been totally erased because they're not immune from the timeline, because apparently that's just how this works. So those are the things that never happened in this timeline, 100%. Other things may have happened, but we have no knowledge, evidence, or whatever of any of those things. And in fact, more things would have happened now, because now new time people would have gone back and caused other issues. So there could be other things we don't see. They could literally throw in a temporal incident with an alternate Cisco killing Bell. Like, there could be another joke, but nothing we saw kind of happened. There's a lot, Stuart, that got erased, as well as obviously everything we saw.
Yeah, him saying essentially the Federation never existed definitely changes a lot of things. So...
yeah. No time cops, no temporal Cold War. All erased.
Yeah, wow. There's probably a lot of other ones we could reference too, but that's just that's a good list. It's a good list. So, wow.
Yeah. If time is such that time travels in the past can't still exist because the future's changed, then yeah, Enterprise seasons 1 to 4 literally didn't happen the way you think, because there's too many things that would be different. And the Mirror Universe, you don't think about that. The Mirror Universe is waking up today and being like, oh, Archer is still the NX-01 and he's never gets captured, and so 2 universes got changed at the same time, which implies other things that may have changed and happened, etc. So currently, Stuart, ironically, Prodigy, Discovery, they're not canon. So, like, if we were watching, so did the last episode of Discovery happen? So literally, when we watched Discovery, the season finale, it got erased from the timeline as we were watching it, because it didn't happen in the context of Picard being the present. So that's just kind of funny to think that we watched a non-canon episode.
And you got to think too,
time.
First Contact wouldn't have played out the way it did either, because they wouldn't have gone back and helped Zephyr Cochrane as well. Wow.
Well, Zephyr Cochrane couldn't have existed without the ChronoWorks technology to then give them all the boost. But we also couldn't meet the Borg because Q is out of time. And there is only one Q entity of our John Delancey Q. So that Q would never have met the evil Picard and helped him, because he's rooting for our Picard. There isn't 2 Qs, there's 1 Q. So Q didn't suddenly change the timeline and help the other Picard, who he doesn't know, throughout history, with 1 Q helping us. So we never met the Borg when we did. Obviously, Annika never did either, so all that Borg stuff, she wasn't assimilated. So we never met the Borg, never any Q incidents at all, etc., etc.
Well, they captured the Borg Queen, though, so they obviously met them somehow, but it would have been an alternate way to meet them. So
exactly. Maybe they went to the Delta Quadrant and said, Quantum's fire. I don't know. Q never met them. Q never did anything with Picard, Janeway, etc. Those things never... But obviously, the Confederation, they didn't happen either. So it's a pretty in-depth stuff that just didn't happen, but also led to other consequences. So it's... but First Contact's irrelevant because they wouldn't have gone back. Because I guess they just, the chain of events to meet them, Borg, would be so different they would never have thought to go back in time. Because they would have needed the Enterprise E and then which never happened, so. But we are going to talk about other case studies that prove both versions of this, either... Because we just did the pro version of the Terry version. The other version, of course, being that once you have traveled back in time, you still exist in the past because you're in the past, etc. But we're going to look at both case studies because Trekyards covered both. But that is the existence, if that's the way around. Lots to think about, Stuart, and although in compiling this list, most Trek doesn't go back this far. There isn't a ton of things that are erased. It's more post-events that are changed, but they're all gone anyway because of the Confederation, so there isn't as much to go back. It's more just the Whale Probe and Cisco and then Enterprise Season 1, etc. But that's obviously a little bit in the future anyway.
Very interesting. Well, thank you for compiling that list, Commander. That was amazing. All right, guys, check out the other videos, as we said, the pros and cons, and we will look forward to your comments on those videos. Comment down below as well. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell icon so you don't miss any of that stuff. And by all means, join us whenever you can.
And support us if you can directly, financially. Really makes a big difference. Patreon, PayPal, join the channel on YouTube, buy a shirt down below, or PayPal as well. All help in different ways, any of which can. And Super Chats during the lives are an amazing way as well. Thank you in advance.
That's right. So until next time, he's Commander Cockings.
He's Captain Foley.
See
Bye,
you
guys.
guys in the future.